Maryland Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen's just back in the U.S. after traveling to El Salvador to meet with a man the DOJ has admitted should not have been deported to El Salvador, though he could have been deported elsewhere. The senator shared this photo of his sit-down meeting with Kilmar Abrego Garcia on Thursday. Joining us now, Maryland Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen. Thank you for coming in to speak with us today about this.
Shannon, good to be with you.
Okay, so I know that I watched your remarks at Dulles Airport after you landed, and you said it's time for this administration to put up or shut up. So I want to talk about the evidence they've put together that they say shows an MS-13 connection for Mr. Garcia. They point to this Prince George's County Police Department gang report from March of 2019. They said he was observed wearing a Chicago Bulls hat and hoodie with rolls of money covering the eyes, ears, and mouth of the presidents, meaning of the clothing within gangs is to represent see no evil, hear no evil, say no evil. They say officers also contacted a past proven and reliable source of information who advised that Abrego Garcia is an active member, this was at the time, of MS-13 with the Westerns clique. He is the rank of Chicao with the moniker of Chele. So that's what they've put out there. One law enforcement source I talked to said, if you don't want to be associated with the gang, you're not going to wear the indicative clothing, you're not going to hang out with them. This is the report of the police department from 2019.
So, Shannon, they need to put up or shut up in court. Let me read you, and I brought it with me. I want to read you what Judge Zinnes of the Federal District Court just found on April 16th. She said that they had presented, quote, no evidence linking Abrego Garcia to MS-13 or to any other terrorist activity, unquote. If they've got evidence, you put it before the court. Don't spread it all over social media if you don't think it can stand the test of court scrutiny. They're trying to change the subject. The subject, as you said, was they are disobeying the court order, and they admitted themselves in court that he'd been wrongfully abducted and taken to El Salvador. Instead of fixing the problem, they fired the lawyer.
Well, he's on suspension, and I did ask the Attorney General about that.
They upbraided him.
Okay, so this finding, though, was accepted by an immigration judge. Determined in April of 2019, says the determination that the respondent is a gang member appears to be trustworthy and is supported by other evidence in the record. And then from there was, in December of 2019, on appeal, the Board of Immigration Appeals also said the immigration judge appropriately considered allegations of gang affiliation against the respondent in determining that he has not demonstrated that he is not a danger to property or persons. And in that proceeding, legal proceeding, the burden is on him to prove that. And the judge, the appeal, both say he didn't do it, and they believe the evidence they saw from police.
As you say, and you just indicated that, they never affirmatively found that he was a member of MS-13. They never, of course, charged him with any crime. And what the judge ultimately did in the immigration case was say that his life would be at risk from other gangs, if he was returned to El Salvador, which is why he got a work permit, which is why the members of his union, the sheet metal workers, are demanding his return. You know, you don't get a work permit if you are not legally in the country at the time.
He wasn't legally here. We agree to that.
No,
he's never legally been here.
He came at age 16, right, with his family, and no one's contested the fact that he fled El Salvador because they were afraid of gang violence. And then he came to the United States, and in 2019, the courts found that to send him back to El Salvador would put his life at risk. And the Trump administration did not appeal that decision, which is why he got a work permit and why he's working to raise his 3 kids. So let's be really clear that the fundamental issue right now is the fact that the Trump administration is ignoring court orders. And if you deny one person their constitutional rights, you threaten the constitutional rights of everybody. I can't understand why conservatives, or certainly libertarians, would accept the idea that someone can be deprived of their liberty without due process.
Did you ask him if he has any association with MS-13?
I did not ask him directly because he's answered that question repeatedly, as his lawyers have. My purpose in going there was to, number one, see if he was alive, see if he was healthy, take his story. As I said, they have litigated this case on MS-13, and it was the judge in the most recent case who says, put up or shut up. So that's what I say to President Trump and others, put up or shut up.
Hearing these reports from Prince George's County Police and from the immigration judge and the appeals court in the immigration setting, do you worry, though, that you are sticking your neck out for somebody who maybe down the line is proven to be connected to MS-13?
I want to be very clear. I'm not vouching for the man. I'm vouching for the man's rights, his constitutional rights to due process. And the proper place to litigate that is in the courts. And the most recent federal district court judge that looked at this, Judge Zinnes, said that the administration had presented no evidence of his connection to MS-13 or, by the way, to any other criminal gang or terrorist activity.
Okay.
So, again, all the issues you raised, why aren't they presenting those to the courts? So, again, put up or shut up in court, which is where we litigate these things.
Okay, so you know that there's been a lot of attention on two Maryland women who are angel moms in the sense that no connection to Mr. Garcia at all, but in two separate cases involving people who were in the U.S. and in Maryland illegally, violently raped and killed their daughters. This is Patty Morin, the mother of Rachel Morin, one of your constituents.
And to have a senator from Maryland who didn't even acknowledge or barely acknowledged my daughter and the brutal death that she endured, leaving her 5 children without a mother and now a grandbaby without a grandmother, so that he can use my taxpayer money to fly to El Salvador to bring back someone that's not even an American citizen.
So a lot of questions there. First of all, who did pay for this trip?
This was an officially cleared, congressional trip, cleared on a bipartisan basis. Yes, like every other trip that, like the trip Kristi Noem took with her fashion show before CCOT, like the trip that 5 Republican members of the House took, like the day before when they went into CCOT. I can tell you, so that's, yes, it was an official trip.
Okay, so your response to her, and you understand her frustration and feeling like her daughter was a constituent of yours, met a horrible end. That family didn't hear from you, and understand their frustration and that they see you extending so much time and energy over the Garcia case.
So what happened to the Morin family was awful and unacceptable. I cannot imagine losing a child like they lost Rachel. And I said at the time that my heart goes out to the Morin family. And I'm glad that the killer of Rachel Morin has been convicted in a court of law. That's how we hold guilty people accountable, in a court of law. Courts of law are also where people get their due process rights respected. As you indicated, there is zero connection between the horrible murder of Rachel Morin and the situation with Abrego Garcia. And I don't know if the Trump administration seems to be arguing that because of the awful thing that happened to Rachel Morin, that Abrego Garcia's rights should be neglected.
I don't think that's not the question. I think it's about the mother being unable to understand why you would spend so much time and energy for this person who was not in your state or in the country legally, at which time she felt like you didn't have the same concern about her daughter and her family.
I did have concern. I have concern. My heart goes out to every Maryland family that is the victim of violence, regardless of the perpetrator. And that is why I am very glad, and said so, that a court of law has convicted her killer. That is where we litigate these issues. That is where the Trump administration admitted that they had wrongfully detained and deported Abrego Garcia. My whole point here is if you deprive one man of his constitutional rights, you threaten the constitutional rights of everybody. I would hope that all of us would understand that principle. You're a lawyer. I'm not vouching for the individual. I'm vouching for his rights under the Constitution.
So just quickly then, if he is brought back, if the administration finally says, okay, we got a duty, let's get him back here, and he's given due process, then deported again, you're okay with that process? I
support the rule of law. That's exactly my point here. And if you threaten the rule of law for one person, you threaten it for everybody in America.
Well, we know it's been a whirlwind, so we thank you for taking time to come in. We appreciate it. Always good to see you, Senator.
You too.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.